Okay.
Welcome everybody to the Henley and Harpston Neighbourhood Plan Review Committee. Today, Monday the 14th of July. Item 1 on the agenda is apologies for absence. I've had Rebecca Chandler-Wild and Michelle Thomas may possibly be late. Other than that, I've heard nothing else. Have you, Kath or Jodie? No. Okay, thank you. Item 2, declaration of interest, to receive any interest relating to the business to be transacted at the meeting. Does anybody have any pecuniary interests? No, I see none. Item 3, public participation, to receive questions and comments from members of the public on any items included on the agenda. Do we have any members of the public here today, Jodie?
No.
Oh, okay, thank you. It does surprise me that no members of the public do come along and ask questions. But anyway, item 4, terms of reference, which are on page 5 of the agenda, which you've all seen before, to approve the notes of the Neighbourhood Plan Committee held on the 20th of May 2021. They're on pages 7 to 11. If I can take those as read. All in favour of those? Okay, thank you. Item 6, update from the planning officer. So I'll hand this over to you, Jodie.
Thank you. So yeah, we've been working towards the exhibitions which are coming up on the 2nd and 3rd of July. Thank you to those that have filled out the doodle poll to say that you can attend. And I'm working on some FAQs which I'll circulate to attendees this week. Me and Kath had a discussion with OCC this morning to discuss our transport policies and also the 2015 transport study on whether that would need a full review. They've suggested that we should get a report from Peterborough, which is now Stantec, to go alongside that study to show that this assessment is still relevant and can be used to support the policies. So we'll be looking at doing that. We've also been busy putting all the information together for the exhibition. So the board's going to be having one for each site option, showing the site assessment produced by ACOM, and also boards setting out what our vision names are for the policies and the overall plan. Kath has been coordinating a video to support the exhibition. Members of the committee will be speaking on key themes. That was my update. Thank you.
Does anybody wish to comment on any of those items that Jodie has brought up? I think the plus was actually in the from OCC on the Peter Brett transport study. We definitely didn't want to go into a full study. The cost of that is absolutely enormous. So hopefully once we send the information to them of our proposed policies, they then are accepted. And they obviously will come back with a statement which we can then pass on to OCC. So I think that is a plus anyway. I just don't believe we needed another transport study at this moment in time. Okay, if nobody else wishes to comment on, sorry, Jackie.
And I think David was before me.
So I didn't see you.
Go ahead.
Yes, I maybe shouldn't, but I just wanted to ask how exactly it will be decided that the transport study is still relevant now?
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, we'll go to Stantec and they'll hopefully be able to pull us together a report. If you consider the study at the moment, it is looking at all of the issues that we think are still relevant today, looking at options, etc. And so those should be able to be identified moving forward. If you have specific concerns, then definitely highlight those to us now in terms of where you feel like they might be out of date. But yeah, it wasn't done too long ago, and most of it is still relevant.
Thank you.
Okay, David Whitehead.
Well, I was just going to ask whether we could be confident that the exhibition will go ahead, whatever Boris Johnson says this evening.
I'll let Kath say, yeah.
Kath.
Assume we could be holding the exhibition now, because I think the figures are legally we can have 50% of the normal capacity in the main hall.
Right.
So I think that still allows us to have 100 people in there, even with the current restrictions.
Right.
But obviously people will still have to sign in either on the app or sign in a record that they're there, and we'll be preserving social distancing guidelines. But yeah, we've got enough space in there. It's a big enough hall that we've got room to still do it, assuming things stay as they are at the moment, and that there's not a reversal of the situation.
Okay, yeah. Thank you, David. Patrick.
Yeah, the Stantec did that subsidiary report for us. Are we going to ask them to take that into consideration, or are we going to ask them to ignore it?
Jodie, have you got an answer to that?
We'll definitely send that over as well. It's just hopefully just a covering report saying that all of that is, still worthwhile evidence. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ian Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Are these consultation forms going to be sent out to the residents of Henley, or are they just going to be handed out on the exhibition days?
So they'll be handed out, and they'll also be available on the website as well, for people that can't attend. If you know of anybody that want a hand copy, then just get in contact with Kath or I, and we can look at that.
Because on the previous one at Jubilee Park, the questionnaire form was sent to every household. So I was assuming that they was going to send the same on the exhibition day.
Not for this exhibition, but it will be available online. And moving on to when we do pre-submission, we'll be doing it then. We'll be sending it to every resident, every household. Yeah.
Thank you.
Good question. Thank you. Joan Clark.
Quick query. I'm not sure whether I'm talking about two forms which are the same thing or two separate ones. The consultation form and the site assessment feedback form, are they two different things or the same?
Jodie.
You remember you sent out a draft site assessment feedback form, and a lot of people were not very happy with it.
And so we've
the consultation one, or is that a different one?
So the one included within this paper.
Well, this is the one that said, please tell us what you think about the conclusions set out on the site assessment by answering the following questions about the environmental constraints, physical constraints, accessibility. And quite a few people gave feedback to say that they were not very happy about that form. They didn't think it was very comprehensible for most, for a lot of people.
Yeah, so I've taken those comments into account and redrafted it, and we'll come on to that.
But that's not the same. Is that the same thing as the consultation form that Ian is referring to?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, let's move on to item 7, updates from the working groups. The one was small I, which was schools, colleges, doctors, surgeries, utilities. Rebecca and Michelle, neither of those are here. So
I'm here.
Michelle's here.
Okay. Do you wish to make any comments on item 7, small 1, Michelle?
Yeah, I mean, the thing about the schools is that, the census only comes out once a year. So reporting back once every quarter isn't really going to work, or once every 6 weeks. I mean, all I can do really is just make sure that I work closely with Jodie on when it comes time for writing up the policy. for primary and secondary provision.
Okay, thank you. I'll just make a few notes. Right, thank you. Item 2 was libraries, community halls, sports and leisure facilities. Joe?
One update. The tennis club have got planning permission for their lighting. I haven't asked them yet when they're going to go ahead, but they have now got planning permission for the flood lighting. And then the second one is, I have heard, and I'm sure that you'll know far more about it than I do, that there's been some snags with the building of the pavilion at Jubilee Park, but I'm not quite sure what that is.
I think snags underestimates the problem.
I've been polite there, Ken.
I think,
what is the situation?
I think
update my paper.
I think snags are normally what you look for after it's been built, actually. Kath, would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, I can do. Yes, I mean, as reported in the Henley Standard, the council has stopped the negotiations that were underway with the developer for the sale of that site, and the redevelopment of the site and building of the clubhouse on Jubilee Park. The council's currently just investigating what the options are going forward with a view to a new clubhouse 3G pitch. And also we've asked ACOM as part of the work for the exhibition to consider that site for the possibility of putting 50 apartments on that flat as opposed to 30, which we've got in the current neighbourhood plan. And we're waiting ACOM's opinion on that. Because
the actual pavilion is not now going to be built then, am I right in saying that?
That remains to be seen.
It's still negotiations and exploring options.
We're still exploring options.
Okay, that's the phrase that we can go into the report. Okay. Exploring other options for both pitches and pavilion.
Yeah, Kath and the town clerk did meet with the 2 sports clubs last week, and the minutes that I've read, it was a fairly positive meeting, Joan.
Yeah.
The bigger the problem is quite simply the cost.
I'm quite sure. Yeah.
It was incredible what was the kind of figures that were being bandied around.
Yeah.
So we're obviously looking to build a smaller unit which they can share.
Yeah.
Obviously the 3G pitch as well, and hopefully the both will come together.
Yeah. Yeah.
There is a lot of funding out there for 3G pitches. So So a little bit more than a snag, but
I had heard that there was a big problem. I didn't want to be rude about it.
Well, it wasn't that big a problem.
Thank you for giving me the latest update. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that. Transport. Jodie, you first, and then.
Yeah. So for our meeting this morning, OCC have provided some overarching comments on the policies. So I'll be looking at that to review them before the exhibition. And again, as I've mentioned earlier, going back to Santec to look at options to provide an update on that transport study as well. Thank you.
Does anybody on that little working group wish to say anything?
No, it sounds as though it's in hand.
Okay. Item 4, car parks. Actually, I've had some really nice emails from people that have used the car park. Now they've got the free 1 hour all the way through the day. So that's something positive that's come out of the review. So that's a plus. I better not say I haven't had any bad remarks yet. Otherwise, obviously, people will start writing in with some issues. But that's been very positive. Other than that, nothing to add on car parks. Unless you've got anything, Jeff?
I was just going to say, have you had any, I know it's early days, but have you had any feedback from the retailers as to what their footfall is like, particularly on a Saturday afternoon?
No, I haven't. That's a good question to ask.
One retailer spoke to us this morning and said that they normally experience an influx of customers about 3 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon. That's completely disappeared since the new car park charges have been in place. I know it's only a few bob to park your car there, but seemingly there's some sort of effects already.
That's surprising, that, because the majority of people, when we've been going around talking to retailers, seemingly the majority of people shopping seems to come into town about 11 o'clock. So I'd be interested to know about the 3 o'clock one.
Well, I'll share that with you offline if you like. And,
okay, I'll make a note of that. Right, item small 5, new housing permitted development rights since 2017. Jodie, do you want to just make a comment on your paper on items 13 to 21?
I'll do that later on. I'll just give a brief update in terms of the new housing requirement for set from SODC, so that they're working towards producing their latest 5-year land supply statement. So they've been looking at completions and commitments for Henley, and they've got an interim figure showing an outstanding requirement of around 69 dwellings. I should note that there is also that requirement to bring forward affordable housing. So even though that figure of 69 might be provided by the time we get to like further down the line later this year, in examination stages, we'd still have that requirements for affordable housing.
Yeah, this as we've seen all the way through this is a moving target, kind of every meeting with these figures. I think a lot of it will come back to when we sit down and start discussing the results from the exhibition, and I think that's when we need to get some solid numbers of what we are going to be looking at. David, do you want to speak to your paper that you sent through, David Whitehead?
Well, yes, I'd like to run a few numbers past you, actually. First of all, to see what the commitments for Henley are at the moment. The current shortfall of homes on the existing 2016 neighbourhood plan is 235. That's if you add up all the numbers scheduled for places like Hempstead Works and Chilton's End, Fairmile that haven't yet started their developments. So there's a 235 shortfall on the existing neighbourhood plan. Now, presumably SODC expect us to provide 115 extra as stated in the adopted local plan. So that gives you a total 235 plus 115 brings you up to 330. Now, that's the number that's going to be built willy-nilly in Henley over the next so many years. But it's when we look at the windfalls and the PDRs that can reduce this number that we run into difficulty. The recently adopted local plan states that the completions and commitments for Henley up to 1st of April 2020 was 1,170. But if you look at an earlier draft of that local plan up to the 30th of September 2018, they had a number of completions and commitments of 1,129. And these numbers indicate that only 41 were added during the period September 18 to April 20. Only 21. But if you look at the spreadsheet that I've circulated, you'll find that the corresponding number on the spreadsheet is 140. So there's a discrepancy of 99. I have sent a request to SODC asking for an explanation of this discrepancy, but I've not yet received a reply. But I think it is important to know what numbers we're looking at in the context of these new sites that are coming up for discussion.
Who did you send it to at SODC, David?
Well, the planning department, I posed an earlier question, which was more straightforward, and I got a straightforward answer from someone named Joanne, I think. Can I ask if Ricardo Rios is still at SODC in the same role? Does anyone know?
Yeah, he is. We've also got another contact, which is Ben Duffy. I'm happy to send this over to them as well.
Do you want to send a copy to Jodie, David, and with your comments on, and we'll send it to this new person.
Okay, yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
If you could do that. The problem with your figures, which are excellent, I'm not going to say anything about your figures, but the bigger the problem, as I see this, is that, you know, what will actually be built, you know, on your figures. Like an example, the Thames Farm at Reading Road, which you got down for 95, which is a true figure. But with the problems they've got there, will they build 95? You know, and that we don't know. The Joan before mentioned the 353, 357 Reading Road. You know, will 30 be built there? This is the problem. And when you consider that the neighbourhood plan was complete in 2016, you know, 5 years later, some of these sites are really no shows at the moment. And
others are exceeding their allocation. So
I totally accept that, and I think that's when we will come down to a final figure.
Yeah.
But it's very difficult at the moment saying all these which you've got on your sheet will be built because of some of the problems that are arising. I say your numbers are correct. No one's arguing about your figures. It's just the question: will they be built?
Yeah, there is a doubt about the figures in some ways. Anderson House, for example, was a confusing one because they originally put in for permitted development, and that was granted, and then presumably they withdrew that and put in another one, which involves demolishing the building, and that is not covered by
meeting with the council at the moment.
Sorry,
Jeff, could you just okay? On you go, David.
Yeah, so well, that's in the pipeline now as Anderson House is under consideration. But I did have it down as earlier on as permission.
Yeah, but I thought the figures were more than you've got down. I thought the figure, you've got 32 down. I thought the latest figure was, I think, about 43.
Yeah, well, that's because it's an update. I subtracted the number that they already had permission for under permitted development, because that came up in another column.
Okay. So yeah, so if you can pass your information or your questions on to Jodie, and then she can pass them on. Is that okay?
Yes, okay, yeah.
All right, thank you. Anybody else wish to speak on that? On little item 5? I can't see anybody. Item 6, business and community engagement. Jodie, you've got a small comment, I believe.
Yeah, so thank you to those that have provided comments on the feedback form, which you'll find in the agenda. I've worked through those comments and brought forward some changes to the form, tried to simplify it and make it really easy to follow for people attending the exhibition. Also reduced the number of pages overall. So yeah, we're suggesting that this is handed out at the exhibition, and it'll be handed out alongside a booklet of all the site assessment summaries for each of the sites, so people can use that to then fill out their form. And as I said earlier, this will all be available online as well, so people can fill that out.
Okay, anybody wish to speak on that?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, could I just have a comment?
Yeah, sure, Matthew.
I'm very conscious that I'm new to all of this as well,
No,
so
that's fine.
the level of experience of you know, of you all on the call, but you know, sometimes that's not necessarily a bad thing. I just, when I look at the form, I sort of get the sense that if the anticipated audience was everyone on this call, it's absolutely perfect, because you all understand and the nuances, and you have experience of the differences between, you know, landscape and physical attributes and all these things. I'm still struggling. I'm trying to get up to speed, but I'm still trying to struggle with the definition between some of these attributes, and therefore I sense that if many of the participants who may well turn up to the exhibition are like myself and unclear the difference between, I don't know, you know, environmental or physical or so on and so forth. So, you know, if the questions are somewhat ambiguous to the public who are hoping to turn up and complete this, you know, I just question the answers that we're going to get back. Are they really reflecting the public's opinion? And therefore, you know, Jodie, I think it's, you know, fantastic form that you put together, and it's very, very detailed, but I think it could be perhaps very helpful to highlight somewhere, if we're going to go with this structure, to have you know, a clear definition or something that helps people understand the difference between the various categories, and then they can make up, you know, they can add that to, you know, to their information when they're making their comments on the feedback form.
Yeah, can I come back on that? Yeah, I think what's missing from this is the handbook that we're going to hand out as well. That, yeah, I completely agree with what you've said there. I'm just trying to get it up so I could share my screen and just show you, because that sets out what each consideration is and how they can actually comment on that. Just give me a second.
Okay, no rush.
It's phone ringing.
Okay, let me just share my screen. It's fine.
Actually, Matt, while Jodie's looking for that, would you like to take Sarah Langton's place on industrial land, which is little 8 on the agenda?
Yes, I will, although again, as I said, this is rather new to me, so there's nothing from my end that I need to add on that, but I will liaise with the relevant parties and be better prepared for next time.
All right, thank you.
Okay, I've got it now. Sorry about that. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this will just be the front cover, setting out what the document includes, and I'll show you an example. So this is the Chiltern Centre. It will say, it will set out what the site assessment produced by ACOM, how they assessed environmental considerations, physical considerations, landscape. So people coming into the exhibition can actually pick this up, see what ACOM have said, and then rate it on whether they agree with that or not. Does that help?
I mean, to an extent, but just looking at that, the you know, the physical, I think you scroll down, but the physical said, you know, there's good access to the site, and then underneath there's accessibility. I said, well, there's good access. What's the difference between accessibility and physical?
Yeah, so that says there's good access to services and facilities.
Oh, okay.
I can make any comments to make it clearer, definitely worthwhile. So let me know. I'm still working on it, so I can change I can update that. Patrick?
Does there's good access to the site mean that you can get onto the site fairly easily? Is it as simple as that?
Yeah.
Right. Like they've got a road or something like that, or
They've got a road and that can, yeah.
Okay, all right.
Patrick.
Jody, could you give us some homework and send this out and say, could you come back with comments?
Yeah, okay, I'll do that. It has been taken directly from the ACOM site assessment, their conclusions on that. So
sometimes think that might be part of the problem, Jodie, that their language is not very accessible for ordinary people. And I think if we want a meaningful response from people, we may have to think of something very, very much simpler than what I've seen so far.
Okay.
I'm going to go to Kath, and I'll obviously make a comment as well. Kath.
I was thinking perhaps we could just put something in on the headings for each column on the actual questionnaire as well, that just makes it just something very brief to try and make it a bit clearer.
Kester, did you have your hand up?
Yes, I did. I think the questions are suitable for committee members who've studied the subject and know each or aware of the whereabouts of each site. But for people coming into the exhibition from outside without a special interest, I think they'd be put off in very short order. They're just not going to sit down to what they would see as a school test, requiring concentration and preferably sitting down. The whole thing doesn't match up.
We are proposing to put a plan with the questionnaire, Kester, so every piece of land will show on a plan where it is. But I think you'll probably find with these, the majority of people live in a certain area, dare I say, and they're probably more concerned with their area than the whole plan. But the problem with questionnaires, you either put too much or you don't put enough. Whatever you do, there will always be someone that thinks you should put someone else. And I'm sure if you ask all 12 of us here now, we'd all come up with a different opinion. Patrick.
I mean, if we're going to be, I think I volunteered for both days. I hope I have. But if there's enough of us on site, and if we've got something to identify us, if people have difficulties with the interpretation, they can always come and ask us.
Exactly.
And the other thing I was just going to say in response to Kath is actually that was my thought, is that we could clarify the terminology, but actually the way Jodie's done it, and I appreciate now that this is probably the right way, not the way I suggested, the way is actually, it's very specific to each site. And so I think the way Jodie's done it by bringing it out by site is actually probably the right way, because it will mean something different. So the term for accessibility will mean something different from one site to another. So I would leave it the way it is, and we should be on site to, in the hall to help people out, and they should be told that.
I think the other side of that is you don't mention anything about all the individual sites. You just give a questionnaire and then get people to fill it in. And I think that's when you probably won't get substantial comments that you will need when we decide to put which piece of land forward. I think what's in front of you gives the members of the public every opportunity to make a comment on whichever site they wish to do.
Yeah.
David Whitehead.
Yeah, I was just going to suggest that I agree with Kester that a lot of people will think it's too much. They'll ignore the whole process.
Yeah.
But if that might be overcome by giving scope for them to strike through sections and write no comment or something to that effect, where they don't have a strong view on a site, but if they're fully in favour or fully against a site, they should make that clear.
I think the other side of the coin as well, I'll come back to you, Jodie. I think the other side of the coin as well, we're going to have sufficient people to answer any questions. And we could actually, as people come in the door, you know, we could suggest that to them. You know, if they have a problem filling out the questionnaire, please come over and speak to us. You can only offer so much on these. You know, I've been so many things on kind of referendums. There is only so much you can do. It's like you can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. And I think this is what you get on referendums or questionnaires, or that's my view. Jodie.
Yeah, after you fed that back to me, I did update it so people can have the option not to comment on sites that they don't want to comment on. There's also a large space at the end of the form so that people can put any comments on any of the sites being put forward as well.
I'll come back to you, Matt. When do we need to get these printed by, Jodie or Kath?
Well, the form needs to be, well, finalised today really, but the actual handbook with the assessment, I've got a little bit longer this week really. Okay, well if you could send that out after the meeting. Matt.
Yeah, just on the point about the comments, I mean, would it make sense to actually have the comments first? I know it seems like we're tinkering at the edges, but actually, if you ask people for their comments and in their own words to write, you know, do you or disagree, basically, you know, with this site, and they put in their own words the reasons why, and then, you know, from those reasons, the people who moderate this afterwards, or even they themselves, can, you know, tick the relevant boxes. But I sense that once they've ticked a box and they put, you know, it's for exit, because if someone doesn't like a site, they're probably going to tick 3 for everything, right? Whereas if you ask them, you know, do you like the site, yes or no, and therefore why, and you know, you ask them to give them their comments first of all, and then to drill down and articulate that into, you know, your 1s, 2s, and 3s for the various categories. I think it might be more helpful for, you know, those of us or those of you who actually, end of the day, are going to take all these in and analyze them.
Yeah, so I think it's important to have that table at the start so that it's comments based on the evidence which is produced by ACOM, the site assessment. I think that is really important, that we need to get people referring to that when they're providing their comments, and then they have that option. If they don't want to comment, then they don't, and then obviously then they have free boxes to put any other comments. But it's really important that it's based on that site assessment in the first place.
Jodie, has this come through from, and I'll come back to you, David Whitehead, has this come through from ACOM? Is this a similar form that they've used before on other towns?
Well, we've been going back and forth really, because SODC had concerns about how we would put this forward in terms of if you just open it up and let people decide, comment where they want to see sites, then they might well say no to every site or the majority of sites, and then it's then harder to then decide based on evidence where the site should be. So this was the best way in terms of both options to provide people with comments, and also based on that evidence, that the site assessment technical advice from ACOM. So this was kind of redrafted, but this is what we've come to.
Yeah. David Whitehead and then Patrick.
Well, I was just going to ask if people are expected to leave their name and address on the form, or is it going to be entirely anonymous?
Yeah, it's not.
So did you say it could be anonymous, Jodie? Is that what you said?
Yeah, there's not an option to put the name and address on there.
So all comments will be accepted wherever they come from?
Yeah.
Patrick?
Yeah, just an answer to Matthew is that generally from a market research point of view, you put structured questions first, because those are the ones that are unambiguous and that the will of the person that's filling the form in is then written down without interpretation. The danger of getting them to do free-form comments and then us trying to interpret those and fill them into boxes is that could be open to bias, and it could be, we could then be criticized for not having a process which is giving the visitors to the exhibition a chance to make absolute and concrete answers that cannot be misinterpreted. I would say, you know, support Jodie on this, that she's got it the right way around. People have been given the freedom to make comments, and I think they should be published subsequently as part of this, but not interpreted, because that's not our role, and it's something that we shouldn't do.
No, I totally agree. When I was saying that whoever takes all these forms and analyzes and collates them afterwards, you know, you don't want to be second guessing what is on the forms, no, and you're trying to make the opinions. Absolutely not, in no way, shape, or form. I think my comments come back to the point that the categories and the assessments that have been decided by ACOM, I think are, therefore it's, you know, you're taking ACOM's decisions, yes, and their assessments rather than technical. The residents of Henley and Harpston. That's my point.
The thing is, they're planning experts, and so we would kind of have to go with them.
Yeah, understandable.
Joan Clark.
2 points. One, I'm still concerned about language and complexity and length, and that people will come into this exhibition, they've not got very long, they're doing the shopping, they've got limited parking, they'll take one look at a very large complex thing and not bother. That's number one. And number two is, well, actually, no, it's three. Number two is, you may remember when we did the first time round, we finished up with the least unpopular sites, that every single one of them was a negative. So I think we have to be prepared for that as well. But the way we're setting out the form does actually seem to preclude everything being a no, which it was last time. And as I said, we finished up with the least worst ones. And three, is there anything about the number of responses that we need to make it a valid consultation? I fear that the number may be fairly small.
Jodie, can you respond to those?
Yeah, I think we've talked about the language being complex, and I'll send that handbook over if you've got any comments on that. That would be helpful. Right. In terms of number of responses, it's not a definitive number that you need, but the more response, the better. And it might be that we also try and suggest that it's also available online as well, if people do want a bit of longer to look at it, or if their family or friends want to reply as well, then they can do it online as well. It's all about really helping them when they're there, I think, to fill it out.
So they're not likely, when it goes to inspection, to come back to us and say that your consultation has no validity because only 10 people filled it in, or whatever, or 20 people filled it in, or 50 or whatever.
Yeah, it's obviously part of the process, and we'll have to sit down as a subgroup to look at the responses, but also what the other evidence says in terms of the ACOM report, and also comments that we'll get from OCC and SODC to all bring it together. So it's not a fundamental part of it in terms of numbers, but it does help to get a steer, yeah.
Patrick, and then I'm going to wind up on this unless Matt wishes to come back.
Just a thought, and that is that this is open to someone putting in multiple entries to wait in order to bring their put their cause forward. And I wonder whether there's a way of identifying, perhaps just by postcode, where people have come from. That might slow it down a bit. I don't think you can preclude people from putting in. You can't stop it, but not without having people put their name on the form. But I wonder whether there's a way of identifying, at least in some way, so that, you know, if suddenly we have a whole load of entries from one particular postcode, you'd start questioning whether that was really
like Blandy Road.
Yes,
it's a good point, actually. I'll think about that a bit further.
Or also, Jodie, people who happen to be visiting Henley and it might rain and they get a bit bored, so they go and have a look and fill in the form. So people who are not residents.
I don't think they'll take time to fill in this form, Joe.
Kath.
I think the survey, when the survey goes online, it'll be on SurveyMonkey and it doesn't let you submit a second response.
Great, well done.
Okay.
If they do multiple paper ones, that we've got an issue.
Yeah.
Matt, do you want a final comment?
No, thank you.
Okay, no, thanks for everybody's input. And you'll send that out then, Jodie?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Oh, that was a good debate. Thank you, everybody. The next item is review all existing sites. Do you want to just mention the Fair Mile, Jodie?
Yeah, so there's a planning application in at the moment. There's not much more to say on that, really, unless Kath has something to add.
I would imagine that would go through SODC committee. I can't believe they would do that on with the officers alone. And we can have a good chat about slow worms, I'm sure, or not. I've got nothing else on any of the other sites to say. That, as I said earlier, I think the frustration thing is the amount of sites that there's no work that's been started on some of them for, in my opinion, no justifiable reason. But I think, you know, when we come to discussing the different sites, I think this will definitely come up. David Whitehead.
I was just wondering about Empstead Works. Only we were at one time told that Stuart Turner were going to relocate in 2020.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem to have happened. I wondered if there was an updated position on that site.
I think you're totally correct there, David. That's another one. You know, that I think they gave the time scale. The Neighbourhood Plan Group didn't give that time scale. So I haven't spoken to them for a long time now. Kath, have you had any discussion with them or Jodie?
They did say it was still available and being promoted, but I haven't heard from them for a little while either. So I'll try and get an update from them.
I think you're totally right there, David. And I think we should go back to them and say, you know, are you still proposing to go through with this? If not, we will withdraw it from the original plan. We may then make a decision. But you are right. I had meetings with them, I think with Kath, must be 18 months ago now, and they seem very serious to be starting work. But you're right, it's all of a sudden it's just kind of slowed down completely. So yeah, so whatever information you can find out there, Jodie, will be handy. Thank you. The next one is industrial land. Have you got anything to mention on that one, Jodie?
Yeah, so there's a requirement in the local plan for 1 hectare of employment land. We are currently seeking some advice from SODC about whether the Braemont site on Reading Road would actually be sufficient to meet that requirement. So I'll keep the committee up to date with that once I've heard from them.
Okay. Does anybody wish to make any other comments on that?
Yes.
Yes.
Please.
Yes.
Surely the watch factory supplies more employment land than we've been asked for and should keep us in comfort for years to come.
Yeah, it's over 2 hectares, so that's why I'm going back to SODC to see if that would meet that requirement.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, if you ask me personally, Keston, you obviously haven't, but I would have been preferred that there would have been smaller units there for more business. I think just as one bulk business, I don't believe that does too much for Henley, being a specialist company as well. So, you know, if we can, me personally, if we could get more industrial land in or around the town, I would definitely go for that, because we definitely need some smaller units. You only have to look at these farms that have turned their business into smaller units. They're all taken up. There's such a need for those, but you don't want them too big.
That's just not my experience. Up at Hearns, that they're often swapping over, is my understanding.
Well, we need to go and speak to Manor Farm at Peppers. There's any empty units up there. Jackie Walker, sorry.
I just wanted to really support what you just said, Ken. I think it's better to have more separate businesses to employ more people.
Okay, thank you for that. Patrick.
I was going to ask what the situation is with the rest of Hempstead Works, the existing small businesses, and whether there's an opportunity to actually preserve that as business, and industrial, and perhaps with a bit of infill. Then that would improve the affordability of those units.
But that was part of it, though, Patrick. Part of that was meant to have stayed there. 50%. The industrial part of it that's there at the moment, 50% was going to stay there. That's in the neighbourhood plan now.
Already, okay.
Yeah. Site selections will obviously come after the exhibition. Is there anybody else who would like to come on this? Because I think it's going to be a fairly big job, and hopefully we can get in the town hall there and sit round the table with all the paperwork. At the moment, I've got myself, Kester, Michelle, and Joan Clark. Patrick.
I'm happy to join in on that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes, am I.
Okay. Ian Clark. Was that a yes as well? Is he smiling?
He's muted.
All right. Okay. I think that was probably a yes anyway.
He's in.
Okay. Have you any comments there, Jody? God, everybody's muted all of a sudden.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I didn't really. I'll set up a meeting with the subgroup and circulate that.
Okay, thank you. Item 10, conservation area review and local list heritage sites. Jody.
Thank you. So you would have seen last week that I sent out the Harpston review to members of the committee. This was produced by Purcell. They're not recommending it for a conservation area, but there is quite a lot of useful information in there which would help support the neighbourhood plan as well. We've also now received comments from SODC on the draft Henley conservation area review, and Priscilla working through these. Thank you.
Do you want to make a comment on that, Kester or Matt?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Item, I don't think anybody else has hand up. Item 11, the climate emergency 2030. Patrick or Jackie, any comments there?
I've just got one question of it, and that's my trees. Help.
Your what?
My trees. SODC aren't talking to us about trees.
God almighty.
They know it's on their list to do, and they're waiting for the tree officer to give them the feedback. So I'll chase them again this week.
Could you do that?
Yeah.
And could I put off my bit of video to a later date so that I'm commenting on fact rather than fantasy on that one, Kath?
Oh God.
Kath.
We're filming again a week today, next Monday afternoon.
Okay. We just have to hope that SODC have got back to us.
Okay, I'll discuss timings with you separately.
Yeah, I'm clear all day on the 21st.
Great.
Jodie, anything to SODC on like trees? Could you copy me into the email?
Yeah, okay.
All right, thank you. Okay, can we move on then to item 8, Oxfordshire Neighbourhood Plans Alliance. This is your one, Patrick.
Yeah, no report on that. We actually there's been so little action that we cancelled our meeting. Obviously, there's the planning paper, but that's going through process now. There's not much we can do as a Neighbourhood Plans Alliance to influence that.
Okay.
I think that's it.
All right, thank you. Right, item 9, Community Land Trust. Kath, if you could give us an update on that.
Yeah, just to say we've got a workshop being run or facilitated by the Coho Hub this evening, and we'll look to meet again in the coming weeks. We'll also have a stand at the Neighbourhood Plan exhibition.
You'll have to excuse me, I've got troubles. Oh, right.
That's it really. We're waiting on this workshop this evening.
Okay, any questions on that? We have got a lot of information on that now. It's amazing how many. We went to one seminar and I couldn't believe the different types of what they were doing on community land trusts. You know, some were renting, some were 50-50 purchase, some others were selling off houses, so the profit paid for the affordable units. There were so many different ideas. It was unbelievable. So that'd be something when it's set up, how they wish to go forward. Item 10, local green space, which is on pages 23 to 47. Jodie.
Thank you. So yeah, this starts on 23. The methodology was approved by the committee in March, and so the sites put forward for local green space have now been assessed. There was an initial sift to remove those sites that wouldn't conform to the MPPF, so not in close proximity to the community, or those that have already got planning permission or are extensive tracts of land, and those that are protected under alternative designations, so like town greens and SSSIs. They haven't been forward for assessment. So after that initial sift against the methodology, recommendations of whether the spaces should be designated have been made, and you can find those in the report. And the majority of the sites put forward are recognised as priority habitats by Natural England and warrant a designation, and others provide important recreational use, such as mill and marsh meadows. We've been working on maps and we're getting them ready, so we'll be able to have those ready for the exhibition as well. There's a recommendation there to bring forward those, to include it within the revised neighbourhood plan. Thank you.
Could I just, and I probably should know the answer, but I don't. Who filled in all the no's and yeses?
I did.
You did. And I don't want to put any more work on to you, and this is not an immediate, but as for example, where you've got 18 Chalk Bank, you know, obviously I know where the Chalk Bank is. Could we just put something like Valley Road?
Oh, is that one you meant? Oh, right. Thank you. Thank you, Ken.
Who was that?
Yeah, I can add that. If you've got any comments on this, it's still draft form, so please let me know.
Yeah.
And we'll also have the maps available as well, so people can clearly see where it is as well.
Okay. we've got here is a recommendation to resolve that the planning, this goes to the planning committee for approval. I think if we could all support that. Yep. Thank you. Anybody like to speak on that? Although we've just passed it. Patrick.
I'd just like to thank Jodie for the amount of work she's put in, because we started this off, you know, it was just a simple list, and it's really sort of fleshed out now. Appreciate that. Thank you.
And that's why I didn't want to put any more work on at this moment in time. Item 11.
One query. Where is Sarah's Wood, number 26?
You'll soon know when it's filled in, Joan.
Oh, I can tell you, Joan, if you take the new footpath around 40 Acre Field,
yeah,
you head off from the little track behind Valley Road, you go straight up the hill,
and
then into a sharp left-hand turn.
Yeah.
That is the woodland that we're talking about.
Right. Yeah.
There we go. Thanks for this, Kath.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And it's I've forgotten her name now. Sarah is the person who owns it. Crikey, I should know her name. It'll come back to me.
Yeah.
And you'll see the plan in front of you.
Yeah. Actually, Sarah's Wood is near a chalk bank. It's not. Sorry, it's not what I thought you were saying.
Oh no, it's right. It abuts the 40 Acre Field on two sides.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We always call the 40 Acre Field something else. That's what confused me. We always, locally, we call the 40 Acre Field the one at the end of Lord's Close. That's what confused me.
Oh right, okay.
So sorry. Yeah.
Okay, can we move on from there? Item 11, new policies to consider and approve the scope of the draft housing policies to be included within the revised neighbourhood plan document attached, items 49 to 51. Jodie, do you want to?
Yeah, so it's just briefly really. So yeah, the report starts on 49. This sets out the draft wording for the affordable housing policy and the housing type and mix policy. We've had comments back from SODC, and they've mentioned that we should be referring to first homes now and have that included within our policy. So you'll see that in the draft text. So if you've got any questions on that, just let me know. Otherwise, there's a recommendation to approve those.
There's a recommendation on page 50 down at the bottom, 6.1 and 6.2, resolved to the planning committee. 6.1 to confirm the provisional preferred policy approaches to be included within the revised joint Henley and Harpston neighbourhood plan, and 6.2 that the final wording and content of the policies and supporting text be delegated to the planning officer. Does anybody like to speak to that before we vote on that? No. Okay, all in favour of that then? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I withdraw from the meeting, please? I'm not feeling well.
No, you're gonna have a lay down in if not well.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, look after yourself.
Oh, yeah, and you.
Thanks, Ian. Item 12, budget to receive a verbal update on neighbourhood plan budgets. Kath?
Yeah, so we've got some expenditure in connection with the exhibition coming up. We've got a company, a Henley-based company, who will design the boards. We've got about 8 boards that list out the drift, well, the direction we're going with the policies and a bit of an introduction to the exhibition. And then we've got boards for each of the sites that'll be exhibiting at the exhibition or that are up for consideration, whether they're there or not. So that'll include text from the ACOM assessment and maps of where the sites are. So a local company will be designing those panels, exhibition panels, and printing them all for us. So that's going to be about £950. And the video, that's another local company filming. They've been filming background footage today in Henley and Harpston, and they'll be filming interviews tomorrow and next Monday. And that's going to cost about £1,000.
How much, sorry, about?
£1,000.
Thank you.
So we'll be able to just leave that up then as background for people generally, anyone who's interested in the neighbourhood plan, what we're doing. It'll, you know, it should be relevant right through till referendum. And I'm just waiting for costs for, we want to run a big advert in the Henley Standard for the exhibition to attract attention for people to come in, and also the Henley Herald. And Jodie and I are also finalising an application to locality, which is for government funding, which is the remainder of conservation area assessment, and also support from Community First Oxfordshire, both for transport survey and assessing the feedback that we get from the site assessment.
Anybody any questions on the budget? No, I see none. Right, this is the big item now, the logo. So to make it easier for you, we've given you two options. And I don't want to lead anybody, but I prefer option 1. But I know other people prefer item 2.
Yeah.
So would anybody like to speak to this? And just remember, there's only 2 options. Yeah. Patrick. And we're not changing anything.
I'm sorry about this, Ken, but I'm going to say that I very much like option 2. It's a much more modern looking logo.
Excuse me, are you trying to say I'm old fashioned?
No, I didn't say that, Ken. You may just like old fashioned things, but no, I'd have to say immediately when I looked at this, that second one struck me as being something that would carry us, because this plan hopefully will last for at least another 5 years, we hope, and I think that'll do it.
Okay, who else would like to speak? Joan?
Also prefer option 2. I think that option 1, the actual printing, the way that the joint Henley and Harpston neighbourhood plan, it looks messy by the fact that it's not properly justified. I mean, that may be remediable by making it landscape rather than what appears to be foolscap at the moment. But the other one, the underneath one, I think fits much more neatly into the space. And I agree with Patrick that it looks a bit more up to date. So I'd vote for 2.
Anybody else?
Chairman, could I ask my colleague Matt Lehman for his view, because I haven't consulted him on it.
Oh, this is a free vote, Kester.
No, you can't whip him in.
Yeah, you're not on the whip, Kester.
There he is.
I agree with comments that I think the second option does look more modern. The first option, when I looked at it, I think it's probably the H and the H together, sort of. Initially, is that the Henley Royal Regatta type, you know, with the big emblems? And I agree with what Joan said. It doesn't seem to be properly formatted, so maybe that's a little bit unfair. But out of the 2, I think that the second looks more modern. At least anyway.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Do you have a view now, Kester?
Yes, I agree with Matt.
And with Kester.
The other.
Jackie.
Yeah, I like option 1 because if I've seen it correctly, it shows that it's Henley and Harpston. It's got the visual for each, but I think option 2 looks much better. So option 2.
I did say before when I had a chat with Kath and Jodie, I did say I'm going to go for item 1 because I'm sure people don't like me and they're bound to go for the other one. and I proved them right.
No, it's not that, Ken.
No.
Honest.
Right, I think we've gone far enough then. Right, all in favour of item 1. That's 1 vote. Anybody for item 2? No, nobody's voted for item 2. I think item 2 is almost unanimous.
Yeah.
And by the way, Kath and Jodie preferred item 2 as well. Oh, thank you for that support. Item 14, next steps, Jodie.
Yeah, so I'll circulate that booklet for the exhibition so that you can comment on that. I'll have to get quite a quick turnaround on that, but I'll let you know in the email. I'll also circulate more details on the exhibition, and going to be making a lot of things available on the website as well. And we'll be doing the filming, the videos next week. And I'm working on some guidance notes so that people attending can have some FAQs. Thank you.
Could I just take time here just obviously to thank particularly Jodie and obviously Kath for the amount of work they've carried out over the last 3 weeks. Unfortunately, I went AWOL over the last 3 weeks, so I've been no help whatsoever, but they've done an immense amount of work, especially leading up to the exhibition. So, you know, a big thank you, Kath, from the working group and you, Jodie, for the amount of work you've carried out. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Right, the final item is next meeting. We've suggested the Monday, the 2nd of August. Would that be a bank holiday? No? Okay, so we've got Monday, the 2nd of August. Are you proposing that we meet and discuss the, Jodie, we meet and discuss the exhibition before that?
It'll be around that, just before that probably. It will all depend on when Community First can process all of the feedback.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it should be before that.
Okay, thank you. So Monday the 2nd of August, if that's okay for everybody. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, thank you all for your time this afternoon. I've enjoyed the meeting anyway. Took the pain